Since they've acquired the rights to Roald Dahl's catalog of books and stories, Netflix has been trying to get some adaptations off the ground to turn to movies and series for their streaming service, and now we have the newest one based on the Twits. Surprisingly, despite being a somewhat well-known Dahl book, this is the first film adaptation, although few people have tried. Vanguard Animation acquired the rights in the early 2000s, with John Cleese and Kirk D'Amico signing on to write the screenplay, and then later Mark Mylod became the director. This was apparently going to be a mix of live action and animation, and as part of a short-lived distribution deal they had with Vanguard at the time, Disney was set to release it. After Disney dropped the movie, Working Title picked it up, with plans to release it through Universal. That also did not happen, but Cleese and D'Amico's unproduced script did catch the attention of DreamWorks Animation, which eventually led to them writing The Croods. Vanguard was still hoping to make the Twits though, bring on board Conrad Vernon to direct, and some concept art was even publicly released. However, they eventually lost the rights, and after Netflix acquired the Roald Dahl Story Company, they got to work on an adaptation, initially as a television series before becoming this animated movie directed and co-written by Phil Johnston. The story of the Twits involves a horrible husband and wife who love playing pranks with each other and mistreating their circus monkeys, and so the monkeys decide to get back at them. There are elements of that in this movie, along with other nods to the book, but this largely departs from the source material. That can still work, but I felt the story was sort of all over the place. The Twits themselves are appropriately terrible people and become easy to despise through their actions. I thought one of the most interesting aspects came from them running for mayor and working the town up into a frenzy, which served as a solid commentary on the way people can be manipulated following those who don't have their best interests at heart simply by appealing to their emotions and using the right buzzwords. However, the film does not touch on this as much as expected. A lot of the focus is mainly on the Twits running this theme park, which they promote as some miraculous place, and then when the children turn up, it's drab and not the least bit enchanting. So that's who was behind the Willy Wonka experience in Glasgow. A good amount of the plot is centered on this orphan girl named Bisha trying to save the monkeys and stop the Twits. Personally, I did not think she was particularly interesting, and I did not sense much chemistry between her and the monkeys she befriends. The film tries really hard to be sentimental with the child orphan scenes, but I felt nothing, and these were the parts that dragged for me. Humor-wise, there were a couple of jokes that captured that doll-like feel, mostly involving this mother insect telling the story and her son's reaction to it. There's also something that happens to the town's mayor that would not have been too out of place in a Roald Dahl story. Most of the comedy went for obvious bits and routines, and the dialogue just lacked that needed spark that a story like The Twits requires. There are also a few musical numbers in the movie coming from the Twits and the monkeys. However, I already forgot the song shortly after I finished the movie, and they did not add much to the story. Honestly, the whole idea of the Twits singing feels out of character for them. The actors fit the parts well, although I thought the choice of Natalie Portman as the mother monkey was an odd one, and they could have gotten anyone to voice that role. The animation is decent enough, with the Twits looking appropriately ugly, although I'm surprised the movie did not include one of the most well-known parts of the book about how ugly thoughts can make someone ugly too. Maybe the filmmakers thought it would send the message that unattractive people cannot be good people, even though that same page makes a point of saying that you can have physical imperfections and still be a wonderful, good-hearted person. Although it's interesting that Roald Dahl wrote those words, considering some of the horrible thoughts he loudly proclaimed over the years. I liked reading his books, but as a person, he had a lot of issues, particularly with Jewish people for some reason. Okay, I went on a bit of a tangent there. Back to the movie, like I said, the designs fit these characters and work for the world presented here, giving it quite a unique look. There are a few inspired sequences too. There's one scene where we're taken on a tour of the Twits house that's made to seem like a theme park ride, and I thought that showed some creativity. There are also these furry creatures that the father monkey coughs out and which eventually swarm the town, and I thought they had a certain amount of charm to them as they bounce about with their little cheering faces. But overall, I thought the story was unfocused, a lot of the characters lacked interesting personalities, and only a couple parts made me smile. Outside of a few moments of inspiration, very little about the Twits stood out to me.